Aotearoa, and welcome to Friday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect New Zealand. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz, and today we lead with news. Cost-cutting and raising prices are key themes in US business at present, sure to challenge the Fed's policy path. First, in the US, there was an outsized jump in the number of people making initial jobless claims, 310,000 for the week. That pushed up the number of people on these benefits to 1.94 million. Employers now seem emboldened to cut staff before the holiday season, with the incoming administration likely to be very permissive on employment policies. US producer prices also came in higher than expected, rising in November from October and from year-ago levels, but by more than expected, up from 2.6% year-on-year in October, which was also the November expectation, to 3%. Inflation isn't beat. Canadian building consents were expected to fall back in October from the big September jump, and they did, although not by as much as expected. And key data from India came in pretty much as expected. Their November consumer inflation rate was 5.5%, and a small reduction, and their October industrial production rose 3.5%, also a slowing. Food prices are rising much more than the overall level, but they are responsible for most of the decline in the November rate. China's vehicle sales jumped almost 12% to 3.3 million units in November from a year ago, accelerating sharply from a 7% rise in October. Beijing incentives seem to be working as intended, although they might be at the cost of spending in other sectors. China intends to ramp up economic support next year, including measures to boost domestic consumption as it braces for a fresh trade war with the US, a closely watched leadership meeting signalled yesterday. At their annual Central Economic Work Conference, which sets the tone for the upcoming year's agenda, China's leaders pledged to implement more proactive macro policies and expand domestic demand. Their statement listed supporting consumption and investment as top priorities for their economy next year. It is bracing for that fresh trade war with the US and starting their adjustment now. As expected, the ECB cut its policy rates by 25 basis points overnight, the fourth time this year, on a more favourable inflation outlook. Their disinflation is well on track. Meanwhile, the Swiss Central Bank cut their policy rate by double that, by 50 basis points, in an unexpectedly large cut. This marks the fourth straight rate reduction and the steepest since January 2015, bringing borrowing costs to their lowest level since November 2022 and returning them to just 0.5%. In Australia, their employment rose by 35,600 in November from October, up 334,000 in a year. That is a 2.1% annual rise. Monthly full-time employment rose by 52,600, while part-time employment fell by 17,000. These gains were enough to push their jobless rate down from 4.1% to 3.9%, an unexpected improvement. For some, this is a good news as bad news item because it probably pushes back the RBA rate cut even further. The ASX 200 fell on the news. Meanwhile, Australia's population rose 2.1% in the year to June, adding 552,000 people for the year, taking the total to 27.2 million. Victoria, Queensland and Western Australia all rose faster than the national average. Victoria grew the most, up 165,000 in the year to just shy of 7 million. New South Wales was next, growing 143,000 to 8.5 million people. Bulk cargo rates fell again last week by 5% from the prior week, and container freight rates were largely unchanged last week. Meanwhile, air cargo volumes grew almost 10% in October from the same month a year ago. International air freight rose more than that, with the Asia-Pacific volumes up more than 13%. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now just on 4.31% and up 7 basis points from this time yesterday. And the price of gold will start today at $2,681 an ounce, down $33 from yesterday. Oil prices are down 50 cents at $69.50 a barrel in the US, while the international Brent price is up 50 cents at just under $73 a barrel. Following OPEC, the IEA is warning of a potential supply overhang in 2025 as demand remains modest and energy efficiency rises. And the Kiwi dollar starts today at just under 57.9 US cents and down 10 basis points from this time yesterday. Against the Aussie, we're down 30 basis points at 90.6 Australian cents, Against the euro, we're down 10 basis points at 55.1 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today at just over 67.7 to be down another 10 basis points from yesterday. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $101,690 and up 1.1% from yesterday. Volatility over the past 24 hours has been modest at just on plus or minus 1.4%. You can find links to the articles mentioned today in our show notes, and you can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston, and we'll do this again on Monday.